Have you ever done something simply because that's how we've always done it? Have you ever made a decision because your parents expected it? Because your family would approve? Because your culture considers it normal? Because everybody around you is doing it? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, have you ever continued a pattern you didn't even choose? Nobody sat you down and said, here are your options. You watched everyone before you do it, and eventually you did it too. But here's the question I want us to sit with today. At what point do you draw the line? At what point do you stop and say, wait, is this actually my decision? Today's story comes from a rather unusual conversation Jesus had with the Sadducees. Now, before we go on, I want to be clear about something. This wasn't a real family, and it isn't something that actually happened. The Sadducees didn't even believe in the resurrection, so they came to Jesus with a hypothetical, a trick question, designed to make the whole idea of resurrection sound absurd. Here's the scenario they invented. 7 brothers, cooping. In their scenario, the first brother got married. He died without having children. So the second brother married her. He also died. Then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth, then the fifth, then the sixth, then the seventh. According to the law and custom of the time, his brother was expected to marry the widow, one after another. The same woman, the same family, the same pattern. Eventually, all 7 brothers had died. Then came their question. So Jesus, in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? Because all 7 had married her. Now, there's a lot we could talk about in Jesus' response. Resurrection, eternity, how limited our understanding can be when we try to grasp God's reality through earthly experience. But today, I want us to look at something else this story makes me think about. Patterns. Imagine being the 7th brother. You've watched 6 brothers before you. You know exactly what happened. You know the expectation. You know the pattern. And now it's your turn. The question I want to ask isn't whether the tradition was good or bad. It isn't even whether the system was right or wrong. The question is, when does an inherited pattern become a personal choice? There is a difference between this is what my family does and this is what I have personally decided to do. A difference between our culture and I have examined this and I believe it's right. A difference between everybody expects this from me and this is genuinely the direction I want my life to take. And sometimes we confuse the two. We inherit so many things. Names, languages, traditions, beliefs, family expectations. So many things. Ideas about marriage, about success, about what a respectable career looks like. Ideas about what a good child looks like, what a woman should be, what a man should be. And some of it is beautiful. Some traditions preserve wisdom. Some cultural values teach us respect, community, responsibility, generosity, identity. Tradition isn't automatically bad. Culture isn't automatically bad. Family expectations aren't automatically bad. But here's where the problem begins. When we stop examining what we've inherited. When everything becomes, that's just how we do it, and nobody is allowed to ask why. Have you ever asked someone why they do something and they answered, because that's how we've always done it? And you ask, but why? And they say, I don't know. That's just how it is. Think about that. A tradition can survive for generations without anybody remembering why it started. A family pattern can continue for decades without anyone questioning if it's healthy. A person can spend years on a particular path, not because they chose it, but because someone else chose it for them before they were old enough to understand. And here I want to be careful. I'm not saying reject your culture. I'm not saying ignore your parents. I'm not saying do whatever you want. I'm saying think, examine, ask questions, seek wisdom. Search scripture, pray, examine, and then make a conscious decision. Because obedience without understanding can become a pattern, and rebellion without understanding can become one too. The goal isn't simply to reject tradition. The goal is discernment. This is where that 7th brother becomes interesting to me. The Bible doesn't tell us what he was thinking. It doesn't say he secretly wanted something different, so I won't put words in his mouth. But as a picture, I can't help wondering, how many times do we become the 7th person in a pattern? The one who says this is just how it is. The one who never asks if there's another way. The one who stakes inheritance for destiny. Maybe that's you. Maybe you grew up believing people like us don't do that. Maybe you've been told this is the career you must pursue. This is who you should marry. This is how our family handles problems. This is what everybody expects from you. And maybe you've never stopped long enough to ask, but what do I believe? Not what will they say. Not what will people think. Not what will make everybody happy. But what is actually right? So at what point do you draw the line? When do you say, I respect where I came from, but I don't have to repeat everything that came before me? When do you say, I love my family, but I cannot let their expectations become the blueprint for my entire life? When do you say, I value my culture, but I will still examine what I practice? When do you say, this pattern may have existed for generations, but it doesn't have to continue through me? That doesn't mean you become disrespectful. It doesn't mean you become rebellious. Sometimes drawing the line is one of the most responsible things you can do. Because honoring the people before you can mean learning from them, not blindly repeating them. Now, let's be honest. We don't control everything. You didn't choose where you were born, your parents, your childhood, or every circumstance that shaped you. You didn't choose every wound or every opportunity you were given or denied. So when I say choose your life, I don't mean you have absolute control over your destiny. None of us does. But there is something we do have, the responsibility to make choices with what we've been given. You can inherit a story without letting the inherited part write the ending. You can come from a family with a particular pattern and decide your own choices will be different. You can respect your past without becoming trapped in it. Maybe that's what growing up really means, not simple enough to make decisions, but becoming wise enough to understand which decisions are actually yours to make. So before your next major decision, before you say yes because everyone expects it, before you continue something simply because you've always done it, ask yourself 3 questions. 1, why am I doing this? Not the socially acceptable answer, the real one. 2, if nobody expected this from me, would I still choose it? Sit with that. 3, is this truly wisdom? Or am I simply afraid to be different? Because sometimes we're not following tradition because we believe in it. We're following it because we're afraid. Afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being judged, afraid of being called disrespectful, afraid of becoming the person who says, I'm doing something differently. But different doesn't automatically mean wrong. And traditional doesn't automatically mean right. We need wisdom to know the difference. Maybe today you're standing at the end of a long line of decisions. Your parents made certain choices. Your grandparents made certain choices. Your community has certain expectations. And now, it's your turn. But before you simply take your place in the line, pause. Look at the pattern. Ask questions, seek God, seek wisdom, and then choose consciously. You may not be able to rewrite everything that happened before you, but you don't have to surrender every decision about what happens next. Perhaps the question isn't, how do I become different from everyone before me? Perhaps the better question is, what should I carry forward? What should I leave behind? And what should I choose for myself? Because there comes a point when you have to stop saying, that's just how we've always done it, and start asking, is this how I should continue doing it? That is where discernment begins. And perhaps that is where your own chapter begins. This is Diary of ԻjọJésù. Until next time, think deeply, choose wisely, and never be afraid to examine the story you've inherited. Because sometimes the most important decision you will ever make is deciding which part of the story ends with you.
Diary of ԻjọJésù, a journey of faith and grace.